So I am here with Dave Benac. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, sir.
All right. So if we're going to talk about your race for mayor of Kalamazoo, and I've got some questions prepared about you, so we ready to dive in?
Absolutely, let's get to it.
Happy to be with you here today. All right, so first, I followed your first election for Congress, and it had a very progressive overtone. Do you consider yourself a progressive?
Yes, but I think that the term is very difficult to use today because, we came out of the Reagan era when, Democrats and left-leaning people were liberals, and liberal got such a bad rap, by the conservative political establishment. So then progressive came up as a term, and people didn't want to call themselves liberal because it had this bad connotation. So a lot of people are seizing the label of progressive who aren't in any way actually progressive. So I struggle to use the term now because just about anybody to the left of Donald Trump is calling themselves a progressive today.
Right.
So when a term can mean anything to anyone, it really doesn't mean anything. So yes, I'm a progressive, but I think it's difficult to use that label because nobody really understands what it means.
Yeah, it's got a lot of layers to it. It's like an onion, it's got a lot of
Yeah,
layers
yeah.
to that word. So what would best describe your political ideology then? Of the goals of, are you more of an AOC Bernie type guy? I see you have an event coming up with Abdul, who
That's right.
was very progressive within his gubernatorial race. So is it more aligned with that? Because I think a lot of as Democrats, a lot of folks enjoy that and are leaning towards that more. We're seeing that even within the presidential race.
And I think that that's where the public is actually headed. So I think of myself as a populist, a left-leaning populist. And now I know that that's a very difficult term to use also because people keep applying it to Donald Trump, saying he's this right-wing populist and it's this very evil undertone. But he's not. I mean, he's greedy, narcissistic for himself and his wealthy buddies, and that's it.
Right.
He did use some language of populism, and just like anything else, populism can be positive and negative. So what I think of when I use that term is that people are first. The role of government is to make the lives of the people in the community, in the nation, the state, whatever it is, to make people's lives better. And that's got to be the number one objective. So I think that we have right now, we've got politicians and candidates who are for people, and then we have ones who are for the establishment or for the elite. And you're on one side, you're the elite or the people, and there's.
So I'm guessing you're definitely on the people's side.
Yeah, because in the way the terms I use it, yes, but but there are Democrats who are elitists, there are Republicans who are populists. So I think that the label of left and right and progressive and political labels in general are becoming really muddy in the last, say, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. And so, speaking of division a little bit, Kalamazoo within ourselves, see that you are running to represent, can be divided by class, race, age. What are some ideas and tactics and strategies that you're looking to put in place to unite us through common themes and goals?
One is the way that I'm campaigning. So the campaign is, again, it's about people. So to be about people, you have to talk to people. And that's why the campaign has been primarily about going to knock on people's doors. We've been to tens of thousands, literally tens of thousands of doors at this point, talking to as many people as we can, listening to what they have to say, and incorporating their concerns into what I'm talking about on the campaign, because that should be an elected official or candidate's job, to listen to people and figure out how to incorporate people's concerns into your worldview and how you can make those happen. So listening to people is the core, and that's one of the reasons why I keep talking about transparency on the campaign. It's not so much it's a attack on the city government or saying that there's corruption. It's just that the people in Kalamazoo, generally speaking, do not believe that the city government really represents them. Do not believe that the city government makes an effort to reach out and listen. And I would argue that if we want to solve divisions in Kalamazoo in Michigan, in the nation as a whole, people need to have trust in their elected officials. And the only way you're going to earn that trust is by doing the hard work of listening to people and then working for the things that they believe are important.
And I like that you say you're meeting people where they are, of knocking on those doors, not expecting them to come to these
Right.
grandiose town halls
Yeah.
or bougie fundraisers, right, with millionaires.
Right.
So that's cool. And also, you know, when you talk about transparency, the governor has talked about this a lot. Michigan ranks 50th out of the United States with, it's awful, of transparency. So people are out of the loop. And except for insiders, right, we somehow are insiders, but we just care about our fellow community, our fellow people within the community. So that is, I'm happy you brought that up. Now,
So just one more moment on that. The Imagine Kalamazoo was a very good idea in concept. And this was the city's first step in trying to do the things that I'm talking about. But I went to several of those Imagine Kalamazoo meetings, and what I discovered was that every time I went to one, it was the same people in the room. So it was an effort to reach out, get more people involved, but clearly what the city's doing is not working, because we're getting the same group of people who would probably be there regardless of what the city does, because these are the people, like you're saying, we're the people who are involved, we're the ones who show up.
Yeah.
And the city doesn't really have to do much work to get us to get involved, because we're gonna be.
Where they're,
Right.
where they're certain
But it's the people who wouldn't be involved, the people who don't see that as their role in the community, and they're not showing up.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think Imagine Kalamazoo fell short. Not that it was a bad idea or that, it just, we need to go a step further than that, so we get more people into the process.
Yeah, I agree. And so, speaking of getting more folks within the process, now Western's campus is a voting district within itself. What have you thought about, or strategies or ideas to get our students, as a professor here, you know, so you work with these students, these young adults. How can we get them involved civically? We had the initiative of We Vote. We got hundreds of students registered to vote. Would you carry on with that initiative? Would you have a new initiative? Are you interested in getting more students involved civically and knowing what's going on within government?
Yeah. So, to tackle that in bits and pieces, am I interested in getting more students involved? Absolutely.
Great.
Millennials are the largest voting bloc in the country. There's more millennials of voting age than there are baby boomers, which is an amazing statistic and tells us a lot. If we can get millennials to vote, then that is going to change the political landscape permanently. So I think that that's really important for the future of the country and for the community, of course. And We Vote is a great initiative, and I respect that they try very hard to remain nonpartisan and neutral. So I am keeping distance from that because I don't want to be influencing how that plays out. So, but it is a great initiative. How do we get more students involved? The same way we get anybody involved. We find the ways that target group of people communicate, where they congregate, where they go, what they do, and try to reach out to people where they are. So we're trying as best as possible to use social media.
Okay.
Yep.
How's that been going with social media?
It's going well. I'm not very good at Instagram. So I'm trying really hard to get better at it.
Yeah.
The problem for me with Instagram is because I do most of my stuff from my laptop, and you can't post to Instagram from the laptop.
Right.
So that creates a little barrier. But the other thing is
But
events.
you're aware of it.
Right,
So that's
I'm trying to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
that's what I was working on right when you came in. Was trying to do a new promotion on Instagram because we haven't done any promotions on there yet.
Okay.
Yeah. But then the other thing is trying to do things that get students excited, and that's one of the reasons that we have Abdul come into town.
Yeah, so can you talk about Abdul? How did that come about? An activist, Abdul was running for governor. He's done a lot of work with health within Detroit and different cities within Michigan. And so is this more of a partnership? Is this someone to help students get energized about different races that were coming on? What is that event going to be focused on?
The event's going to be focused on generating enthusiasm.
Okay.
So just to kind of like start at the beginning of the question. So Abdul and I are very close in terms of policy and the way we see the world and what we want to see accomplished. And it's not to take anything away from Gretchen, and she's been doing a very good job as governor. I'm incredibly glad we have her as governor, and I supported her after the primary. I did support Abdul in the primary just because we were ideologically closer. And so he and I have a pretty good relationship, so I reached out to him and said, you know, I could really use your help here to get some students engaged and involved, and he was good enough to take that on and help me out. So I feel like the biggest hurdle for students is, well, I guess it's two parts. One, getting them aware that there is election, and then two is getting them motivated enough to actually go vote. And I hope that this event is able to accomplish both of those things.
So if I'm correct, the event is you, Abdul El Said, and Western Democrats.
That's right.
So that's a group here on campus. So you have already started getting some college students activated.
That's right.
So that's fantastic.
And we'll also, we do know that Jacob Andrews will be involved as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
So he's running for city
Commission.
Fantastic. And then lastly, so we've had a lot of news coverage about homelessness, and this is an issue that's very close to my heart, and is some of the most vulnerable folks that we have within our community, whether it be the heat wave that we just had in the summer, or the polar vortex that we had last year. So how do you plan on combating that? As the mayor, we didn't see, in my opinion, enough leadership and enough advocacy for some of our most vulnerable from our mayor. How do you plan on changing that in that landscape of homelessness, and how we take care of some of the most vulnerable within our community?
But it's a good question, because it's if we're looking for like the final thing that pushed me over the edge to run, it was the polar vortex.
Really?
Yeah, because I've been, after the last campaign, I've just been, doing a lot of activism work, being very involved in the community, and because I didn't want to leave the opportunity to help my neighbors. And when the polar vortex was coming in, I was at an event at one of the downtown churches, and I asked the pastor if he had any plans to help people who were experiencing homelessness when the cold weather came in, and he already did. So this was about 3 or 4 days before. He had plans to open up his church. He had coordinated with the church next door. He was arranging volunteers. And at that point, the city had absolutely no plan. Like, they didn't even know it was coming, is the way they were acting. And to me, that's the point where I decided the city's priorities are not in the right place. And we need to change the direction we're going, because the city is not doing what it needs to protect the most vulnerable. And so that's the biggest thing that pushed me around. So how we can address it is we need to get away from having reactive policy and start putting the thought into how do we have proactive policies. So instead of, oh, there's a polar vortex coming, we don't know what we're going to do. How can we scramble and protect people? We need to have in place plans for how we deal with situations like this that we know are coming. I mean, we live in Michigan. It's hot in the summertime. It's cold in the winter.
Freezing.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
we know. And we know. It's not like this is a surprise. So we need to say, all right, what are we going to do? We need to start with a secular, city-controlled emergency shelter.
Okay.
That's the first step. That's not where we want to end, because that's not solving homelessness. That's just ending the crisis at the moment. We need to move to housing first policy. The city has to take a leadership role in how we're going to house people. Right now, again, the city is reactive in the sense that, okay, there's an affordable housing shortage. There's a homelessness problem. There's a poverty issue. Let's find a nonprofit that can deal with this for us, and then let's just support what they're doing. That's the way the city is basically operating. And to me, that is outsourcing our moral obligation. The city has people within its borders who need help. That's the city's job to help those people.
There were protests, and it was very much FDR-era-esque of shab towns of folks in tents, and seeming as if our government had forgotten about them. So I'm very proud to know that you have some ideas and plans about being proactive about a lot of these issues. And I thank you, David, for taking some time to interview with me and talk about your campaign. And what else exciting do we have? What else is energizing you on this campaign that are some issues besides civic engagement and homelessness? How about the environment or anything like that that you're also running on and as part of your platform for running?
So the environment is my passion. Yeah. If we were in a stable enough situation in our city where we didn't have to worry about poverty and homelessness and affordable housing, and I could just deal with environmental issues every day, that would make me super happy. But that's not where we are. So I'd say poverty, homelessness, affordable housing, that suite of issues, those have to be our priorities. But I think that environmental issues are intersectional in the sense that we can look at how we can improve the sustainability, how we can address climate change, while at the same time improving things such as environmental health, housing conditions, and other things for people and people's mental well-being. For example, we need to plant thousands of trees in Kalamazoo. It's kind of a hot thing for environmentalists right now, but what does it do? It takes particulate matter out of the air, which helps reduce the instances of asthma. Yeah. And we know that asthma is something that is a much higher risk for minority communities than for white communities.
Exactly, Mike. Yeah. You know, and I was waiting for you to say it, but environmental racism, this has to be intersectional and talked about within racial relations because my group of folks are affected by it the most.
That's right.
Through bad housing, through mold within their walls, through not having good clean air surrounding them. So I'm happy you bring that about.
Yeah.
And so Kalamazoo has a lot of work, whether we had the PFAS, we had the Triple E, where we were going to spray the streets, and no one really knew how that was going to be brought about. So that talks about transparency again, too, of knowing what's going to be sprayed into our streets and we're surrounded by
and not having enough notice.
Yes.
Yeah, they told you had 48 hours, you had to opt out 48 hours before, and they only told us like 12 or 20 maybe hours before the opt-out deadline.
Yeah.
So that's a transparency issue. We need to know that as citizens. And so I think environment is a place where we can get to a lot of issues. So whether it's trees, which are going to help with asthma, they're going to help with energy bills for people. They are going to help reduce flooding because they absorb and slow stormwater, which is a major problem here in Kalamazoo. They also have been shown, if you look around Kalamazoo, what neighborhoods have tree cover, right? The more low income and minority neighborhoods do not. So again, it's a environmental justice issue. The same with green space. We need more parks and we need more organized activities in parks. It increases people's health, it increases mental well-being. And again, where do we have green spaces in Kalamazoo? Mostly in the more affluent and more white neighborhoods. And again, it's an equality issue. So I think environment can be elevated right up there with the other issues. We just need to talk about it in the ways that it affects our daily lives.